Hey Facebook, welcome to Facebook. Wait, it's not Friday.
Facebook Sunday.
Facebook Sunday.
Hey everybody.
What madness is this?
It's crazy, I know. So, anyway, we're here to do a special show for you today. It's a wrap-up about San Francisco Adventures by Disney, also known as Spirit of the Bay. So, just doing the sound check, sharing, and all that fun and happy stuff.
19. Please ignore the bookmarks at the top of the screen.
Yeah.
And the cat scratching at the post!
Oh, little monster.
This is why we close the door on Facebook Fridays.
Well, she'll get bored in a minute.
She might.
So,
She might.
Hi, Joanne. Alright, so I'm turning the comment watching duty over to Ben.
Huzzah!
Yay!
I am here. I am useful AV monkey.
And this will be a largely solo show with Ben helping me out with maybe fielding questions and keeping me on topic. So,
Hi, Aunt Linda. I was not permitted to go to San Francisco Adventures by Disney.
Not permitted.
Because Holly doesn't love me.
Wow.
That's
yeah.
a lie.
Yeah, far from the truth. Unfortunately, Ben has some limits to his vacation that I don't suffer from. And San Francisco happens to be a place where my mom loves to go. So if you tuned in last Friday, not this past Friday, but the Friday before, you saw our show about our progress so far, which was the first 2 days of the trip. So I want to share with you, we'll do a quick recap of those 2 days. So if you were watching, I'm sorry if there's a little repetitiveness, but I know a lot of people didn't get a chance to see the other video. So
hi, Amy.
So anyway, starting with our plane ride out, we took Southwest, which is usually pretty smooth sailing, and it was this time. We landed actually a couple minutes late, which is really unusual for Southwest and really wasn't part of my plan because we were a little tight on time arriving. When we got to the airport, we were greeted at the baggage claim area by the Adventures by Disney transportation. This is a contracted service, so it wasn't like one of our guides came to the airport to pick us up. They would spend the whole day running back and forth to and from the airport. So, but it was a, I think Mom said it was a Mercedes. I wasn't even paying attention to the car because cars are like so not my thing. But she said it was the first time she ever rode in a Mercedes and she was really excited about it. So, if the camera's moving, that would be the cat.
Yes, who has taken this opportunity to be nosy about it.
Yes, and she loves hanging out with us, especially when we prefer that she goes snuggle down somewhere, take a nap.
Yep.
So.
And we missed the Adventures by Disney car service last time because we added days at Disneyland.
At both ends.
And so yes.
Yeah, so we didn't quite get that. So part of what we want to do, I want to cover the trip and then talk a little bit about the differences between the Spirit of the Bay and the Backstage Magic, which is the Spirit of the Bay is San Francisco because they have a large bay.
You think?
And Backstage Magic, of course, is backstage at Disneyland, so it's behind-the-scenes magic. It all makes sense. So, anyway, without further ado, we're at the car service. We got picked up by our driver. He was very personable. Didn't really make a whole lot of small talk. Didn't butt into our conversations or anything, but was very nice and picked up our bags for us. I had taken my Adventures by Disney duffel. That's what I packed in, which for San Francisco is a little tight because if you haven't been in the summer, San Francisco's cold. In July. So we were there in March, and I don't remember what I wore in March. Do you remember?
No.
No.
Clothes. I assume you wore clothes.
Yeah, I know Mom had said, because my parents had been to San Francisco in the summer before and had frozen to death and had to buy socks. So
sorry. Disciplining.
So I knew that it was going to be chilly, and I think in March we were prepared. I think we had jeans, and it was hot. I think I remember being like overly hot by the end of the day. July was like the flip side of the coin. It was very, very chilly for much of our time there. So I'll talk a little bit about that as we go. But at any rate, our first view of San Francisco was driving across the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, which you can see here. Hopefully you guys can see the photos okay. We're going to kind of try to flip through on a slideshow, and hopefully they're not too much of a glare.
This was an impromptu setup.
Yeah, this is an experiment. We're going to see if we can get some photos into our weekly streams.
That is why I'm sitting sideways, because of geometry and cable length. So
yeah. So Ben's not snubbing anybody, but go ahead and start scrolling through them, honey.
Yes.
So of course we're driving across the bridge. I took 2 pictures, just in case one didn't come out. This is actually our first foray into the city. The buildings are very, very tall on the very, very high hills, so it is a little bit of a weird kind of place to be because you have these immense buildings. Usually cities are fairly flat. In San Francisco, it's anything but. So that was kind of an interesting. A lot of these are out the car window. This is a really long hill. There are lots of them. I took lots of pictures of them. That particular one I think is California Street. Go ahead, you can scroll these pretty quick because they're this is our hotel, which we did do a post about on the on the page earlier. You know what? I didn't share that to my page. I did a sound check and I never actually hit the share button.
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
There you go.
Sorry, guys.
So we're going to have more technical difficulties. Behold, food!
Not really a technical difficulty, but I just have to get it shared. Yeah, this is at the Bread and Cocoa Cafe, which was kind of a cool place to eat. We had a really hard time actually finding a place to eat. Why can't I share this? I'll share it to my page later. Okay. Anyway, we had a really hard time finding a place to eat because we were in the financial district, and most of the eating establishments there are walk-up lunchtime. So they have like a counter facing the street, and it looks like they had great menus, but there were like 20 people in line at each one of these who were all trying to take their lunch break when we arrived in the city at noon. And there we are trying to also eat, but we wanted to sit down because we'd never been to this part of town before, and we just wanted to sit down and enjoy it, and we didn't really have anywhere to go with our food. So it took us about 6 restaurants till we found Bread and Cocoa. So we were kind of like, you have tables, we don't care what your food is. But
hi, Michaela.
This is Mom's chicken or tuna melt. I had a BLAT avocado on my BLT, and this is just some walking back. So just go ahead and scroll through a bunch of these till we get to.
I control the pace.
I take a lot of pictures, so
you do.
So if you get to something that looks interesting, just stop. Here's the hotel again. We might get a little repetitive here. So this is the lobby inside. The lobby of the hotel was really nice. It was very pretty. Done in a lot of marble, chandelier, crystal. Lots of they had a nice balcony overlook. It's the kind of place where they put out a pitcher full of water with fruit in it. So nice, very nice setup. Everyone at the desk was very friendly. I would definitely stay at the Omni again. And honestly, for what the rents in San Francisco are, I don't think the prices here are too bad. I've seen anything from, because of course I do price research when we get home, I've seen anything from $186 a night to $350 a night. And for a place where rent on a 3-bedroom apartment is $4,000 a month, I didn't think that was really all that awful. So,
hi, Melissa.
This is a little bit more lobby here.
It looked like the ABD meetup, didn't it? Is that what the sign was?
No, it was. I think it was a wedding reception.
Yep. So if you hear a clicking noise, that is the cat struggling with the tablecloth.
The next one should be another vantage point of the room. Okay, so there's a better view of the room. It was ample. It doesn't have a balcony or anything, but it did have a really nice fleshed out bathroom, which was good. There's nothing interesting yet. So, yeah. So day one, after we had lunch, we did have a minute to get into our room, take a couple pictures before we had to meet our guides. There's Mom with some orchids in the lobby. And these are our guides, Eleni and Anne, and our adventure group sitting there getting ready to go on our first tour. So we met up at 2 o'clock. We did run into some trouble. We had a couple from South Dakota whose flight was delayed 2 hours in the morning, which, you got to kind of be...
accommodating?
Well, not accommodating, but you got to feel sorry for him because it could have very well been us. We took a chance and flew from the East Coast Thursday morning for an activity that started at 2 o'clock Thursday afternoon. So it could have just as easily, the shoe could have been on the other foot. So they did eventually get to meet up with us, and our first activity was our bike ride, which I don't think I have a ton of pictures of because I was on a bike. This is some street art. We were taking a very brief tour of the city on the way to the bike ride, and our guides I think they kind of changed up the order a little bit to try to kill some time so that the folks from South Dakota could catch up with us. So we did a little bit of our city tour before our bike ride, rather than doing the whole thing afterwards. So this is just driving through the city. Some of the sights. This is the cannery downtown, which I thought was a really interesting story. It's right by the bay, and so you'd think that at the cannery they probably have, canned fish or, shellfish of some variety. No. Peaches. They can peaches. It was kind of fun. This is See's Candy, which is a really big West Coast candy company. And Easy Rider, that's our bike. So we did decide to go on the bike excursion. There was an option. So if you're thinking about going on an Adventures by Disney trip and you're looking at the itineraries and noticing that some of them seem very active, you do have an option. We did have about probably half our group stay on the bus, and they took an additional bus tour around the city while we were on the bikes. So Mom and I did opt to go for the bike ride, which we had I had a good time. My mom was a little bit nervous because they actually took us out into traffic on the bikes, which I don't think was maybe the best plan. There at the very beginning, I thought, we're biking by the bay, and looking at the map, I was like, it looks relatively flat, because obviously the water meets there, so it has to be fairly level. Well, it is right at the water, but there was a very large hill that we had to walk up to start the bike ride. And this large hill, I can't even, in Hanover, Pennsylvania, there's nothing to compare it to. I mean, it was maybe the hill on the Carlisle Pike above the tropical tree. It was somewhere on the order of walking up that hill with a bike. We're talking, it was steep and it was long. We were all winded by the time we got to the top of it, except for the one guy from the bike shop who rode up the hill. And I'm just looking at him like, oh my gosh, are you serious?
Sounds like he does that for a living.
I know, right? And he had a little child on the back. They did a tandem bike. Well, not a tandem, but like a latch-on kind of bike.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mom who was
trailer.
there. Yeah, there was a mom who was there with her little girl, and she was nervous about riding the bike tandem, and the 6-year-old keeping up with her, and so they just hooked this bike onto the back of this guy's, and she rode along for free. So that was kind of cool. So we did make a stop at the Palace. Oh, this is fun. This is Lori's Diner that we biked past. That was entertaining. My mom's name is Lori.
To see the other thing?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
So we biked first to the Palace of Fine Arts, and this is where we had to get out into traffic. It's past this. It's past the Maritime Museum. Pictures of the bay. There's Mom on a bike, proof that she actually rode the bike.
Blazing Saddles.
And the bike helmets are mandatory. You can't get out of them. There's our ride. It's a nice time. That's Alcatraz. That island in the back. We did not get to go to Alcatraz on this trip. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the tickets are, you have to get them 6 months ahead of time. It's pretty, if you're going to San Francisco and you want to see Alcatraz, you really need to plan ahead for it. It's worse than trying to get dining at Disney World. Yeah. So,
more
that's our bike guide. I forget his name. These buildings were used, they were used for the military for a while, but they were also used as part of the 1915 Pacific, oh gosh, the words just left me.
Pacific World's Fair or something?
Yeah, it's the equivalent of the World's Fair, but it's the exposition, Pan-Pacific Exposition of 1915. So, if the camera falls down, by the way, the cat looks really interested in it, and I think she's going to try to
that's what we're
tackle it.
looking at.
And she wants to come up on the table.
She
oh my
does.
Gosh, she's a disaster.
This is why we closed the door.
Yeah.
All right, so continuing on.
So, continuing.
Hi, Dinah.
There's Dinah, everybody. You're kind of in front of the pictures, so that's not really going to work for me.
Yeah.
Get down.
She's not too bad. There you go.
Oh, that was a gym. I loved these. There were roadside gyms, right by the bike trail. So there's a little bar here and a balance beam. There were ones that they had rings on. I was like, this is what, Hanover needs this. This would be great. So, this was right before the Palace of Fine Arts, or shortly. It was nearby.
Pano shot!
Yay, Pano! Okay, here we are at Palace of Fine Arts. This is the structure, the Palace of Fine Arts, that was built for the 1915 Pan-Pacific Exposition. And it was actually for the exposition and for the celebration of the fact that San Francisco was still recovering from the 1906 earthquake, and it was basically a testament to their revitalization. So it just so happens that this Palace of Fine Arts is located near Lucasfilm and is considered to be the inspiration for R2-D2. And the area around the Palace of Fine Arts is said to have inspired several lands from Star Wars. And I think, when I look at it, I think Naboo.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe there's another that springs to mind for the more Star Wars-y folks in the family. No? Naboo?
I didn't have a chance to look at it, really.
Okay,
So.
go ahead. There's another picture of it after that. That's just all of our bikes lined up.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's our 2D2 Palace. Yeah. So then we had to ride in some traffic to get to the Palace of Fine Arts, and then we had to get back on the bike and ride through the traffic again. But then we had to keep getting on and off, because they would let us ride on the street, but not cross the street on the bike. So that was good humor, man. That was the part that we found the most difficult. It was just constantly on and off until we got to the flat riding trail area, which is in a couple of... Oh, okay, so we're actually at the bridge now. Go ahead and hold up there for a second.
Yes, sir.
So we rode it was about a 1.6 mile flat section once we finally got past the Palace of Fine Arts and got onto a trail, about 1.6 miles to the base of almost the base of the Golden Gate Bridge. And that was where we rejoined the folks who were on the bus. We did some of our first photos there as a group and did photos with our families there. And then at that point, you had the option, you could ditch your bike and get on the bus, or you could ride back with the guides. I think we were the only people that ditched the bikes. Actually, just honestly, it was just the getting on and off of the bike. Mom's balance is not the best. And I was like, you know what? I think we've tempted fate long enough. Let's just leave the bikes behind and we'll get on the bus. So we also had that hill that we had to walk up and bike down. We were going to have to do that again at the other side. And I was like, you know what? I think we've had enough of the biking adventure at this point, and I think we'll just go enjoy the bus ride with everybody else. So
here's a newsflash: if I'd been on that trip, no biking for me.
Yeah, well, Ben would have ridden the bus the whole time, and I would have biked both ways probably. So, but it's good to know that there's an option, because we've looked at other itineraries that have biking on, and Ben is not a biker. He has no interest in getting on a bike whatsoever. So
they're the devil's contraption.
Yeah, I love biking, so this is like this is a point of contention. So it's good to know that we do have the option to both do something that makes us happy and comfortable and is enjoyable for us. So anyway, when we got back on the bus, we drove through. We can scroll through these a little bit. This was at the bridge. Before we got back on the bus, we were very fortunate. As you can see, there's no fog in these pictures. The fog in San Francisco has a name. His name's Carl, and it makes me think of the Carl Sandburg poem, The Fog Rolls In on Little Cat Feet. It sits silently on its haunches and then moves on. I paraphrased. It's not quite that. But we did see Carl the Fog off and on intermittently throughout our trip, and sometimes shrouding the bridge and sometimes just kind of laying over the islands and over the bay. It's actually really interesting. One of the things that our guides told us was that sorry, it's late, I'm tired. The harbor, people were sailing up and down outside of San Francisco Bay for 200 years before anyone ever entered the bay and found that it was a way to get to the city, because the fog shrouds it so well that with the antique navigation equipment from like the 1600s, no one could tell there was even an inlet there. So San Francisco was largely undisturbed for a really long time, and it actually kept the bay from being something that was sailed into on a regular basis. The Spanish actually were the first to settle San Francisco, so of course that's why the name is St. Francis, basically. So that's the fog actually plays a pretty important role in why San Francisco was so late to be developed relative to other California coastal areas. Now, of course, the gold rush happened in San Francisco in 1849, thus the 49ers. There were about 3,000 people living in San Francisco, 8,000 people living in San Francisco before the gold rush in 1849. By 1850, there were 300,000. So San Francisco's population exploded like crazy.
And they still haven't gotten it under control.
They still don't have it under control. The rents are outrageous. Most of Silicon Valley actually started in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you'll still see a lot of people walking in business suits and sneakers. Those are the folks who make all of the apps that we love to use on our phone. Google has an office there. Facebook's got an office there. Basically, any major app that you've heard of, they either started in or have a major office in San Francisco. So we're back taking the bus tour. You're going to see a little glare on these photos because a lot of them are taken out of the bus window.
You probably won't see it on this screen.
There's Lombard Street, the sign. I didn't get a really good picture of Lombard Street because we weren't on foot at Lombard Street at any point during the trip. Oh, yep, that's dinner. Hold up. But it's really amazing. I pictured a street, but it's almost like a garden at the top, like where it's really curvy, and you have to drive through the plants to get down to the main section of the street.
Like when we were in Savannah. Remember there's that section of Savannah that
but it was like there we went around
okay.
like traffic circles, but they were squares. So there were like intersections and houses in the middle of the street. This was there weren't houses, it was just like little patches of flowers. Like, Bill Cosby was right when he said there are grooves and flowers that they put there for the people who were killed on Lombard Street. So, we did get to see it from a cable car later in the week, but that wasn't now, so I just got a picture of the sign. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
So we took a tour of the rest of San Francisco, and our tour of San Francisco lasted like an hour and a half, and I don't think necessarily because there's that much to see in San Francisco.
Hi, Leah.
That's just simply how long it took to get from the bike rental place to take like an extra couple block lap around to get to where we were having dinner. Traffic in San Francisco was unreal. Like traffic on the freeway in LA is bad. traffic in San Francisco was just like absolute gridlock. Like I would put it up against New York as far as having terrible weekday traffic. Now I think it's still confined to rush hour mostly because the rest of the time it didn't seem quite that bad. But it was definitely between 4 and 7. It was ugly. I would say as a critique of this itinerary, they really need to move the activities so that they're taking place over the 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock hour on the weekdays, so that you're not sitting and doing nothing in traffic. And our guides were wonderful during this time. I mean, they were telling us all kinds of great stories. I have tons of notes written down about awesome things that they told us. But it was, if you get motion sick at all, like sitting on that coach in the stop and go, like Ben would have not been a happy camper the first day. First of all, there was biking, then there was sitting on a bus. Like he would have been miserable by the time we got to dinner. So I was thinking like the whole first day, I'm like, I'm so glad that Mom is on this trip with me and not Ben, because he would be so unhappy right now. So it's, once again, travel's travel. It's all in, your perspective on it. Not everything is going to go smoothly because you can't predict everything that's going to happen. But it's still fun to go. So our dinner was at My China, or MY China, that it's said interchangeably both ways. And it's from, Hippie Bus. That picture must have just gotten out of order.
Yeah, it must have.
That was Eleni's face. Yeah. So dinner at MY China.
Hold on, I'm looking for MY China.
Okay, right
there it is.
There it is. Okay. Was the best Chinese food I've ever had in my life. Probably top 5 meals I've ever eaten in general in my life. Like I can't say enough about this restaurant. If you were in San Francisco, this is a must-do on your itinerary. The chef who created the restaurant, his name is Yan. Something that starts with an M. Yan. Okay. And he did a show. Apparently ran on PBS for a while. It was Yan Can Cook, and it was apparently he filmed over 5,000 episodes. So the guy's, he's now a world-renowned chef, and it's a well-deserved reputation. So these are 2 of the chefs. He was not there. He, I'm sure, has many, many restaurants, so we didn't get to meet Yan. We did meet this nice fellow who does the scissor-cut noodles. So this was, as you're walking in, you can see the chefs cooking, so it's almost like a hibachi situation, and as you walk to your table, and go ahead. There's like 3 of those, I think. Yep. Guys playing with fire. Okay, there are 4. This was the menu. There were 9 courses in our menu, and I'm sure you can't actually read that on screen. But we started with the wonton soup. Then we went to salt and pepper calamari, spicy seafood dumplings, Peking roast duck, honey glazed walnut shrimp, 7 spice pork ribs, chicken fried rice, Szechuan green beans, wild boar scissor cut noodles, and then sugar egg puffs. It was like every dish they brought out topped the one before, until we got to the green beans, because they're just green beans. But but everything was just this is the soup, and that's the seafood dumpling, which I don't think it looks super appetizing in the photo, but oh my gosh, like when you bit into it, you couldn't even imagine something tasting better. This is the calamari, which had a spiced duck sauce type of sauce with it, which is awesome. These are the scissor cut noodles. That's the chicken fried rice. Those are the green beans. The pork spare ribs. The Peking duck. That's hoisin sauce on the Peking duck. And if you know me in real life, you might know that hoisin sauce is like my current obsession. And there were little buns, like the nice fluffy buns, like they have at Food and Wine. Okay. For the sliders. Okay. Yeah. So if you've done the China Pavilion at Food and Wine, they have the little. I think, is that duck? Is that a duck slider?
I have no idea.
I don't remember.
I don't either.
Beef. It might be beef.
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, the buns with the little beef sliders, that was the kind of buns they had.
Sorry, guys. It's late.
And then this is, I think this guy's name was Tony, doing the noodle pulling. This is the noodle pulling demonstration. So apparently they pull the noodles out and then they cut them with the scissors. Very fun. Oh. Okay, that's okay. You're good. All right, so after My China, of course, everybody's pretty tired. So it was 9 o'clock West Coast time, which means for us it was midnight, and our journey had begun at 4 o'clock that morning. So we were pretty tired by this point and happy to go back to the hotel and go to sleep. Our wake-up call the next morning was for 7. That was actually 10 for us, so no big deal. Unfortunately, we were out at the bus and on the bus and ready to roll at 7 a.m. There was one family who showed up around somewhere between 7:30 and 7:40 that we waited for, that I was not very happy with. So our first excursion today was to go to Muir Woods and to the Muir Woods National Monument. We arrived at Muir Woods. It took us about an hour to get there. So we arrived at Muir Woods about 8:30, and you're just checking us?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it look like it went?
No, we're fine. We
okay.
just don't have any viewers because we're going against Game of Thrones.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't watch the thing, so y'all have to watch later if you're watching that now, I guess. So I'm taking down to Game of Thrones, man. I'm gonna do it. No, it's not gonna happen.
Keep talking.
Okay. So Muir Woods. We got to the park about 8:30. About 8:30. It took about 10 minutes to do all the photos at the beginning because, they do a nice photo with everybody with the sign, and this is the bus tour on the way there, so that picture must have just jumped out of sequence.
Thanks, Flickr.
I know, it might have been my camera too, honestly. So just keep going until you get to trees.
Yeah.
So 8:40, we were supposed to be back on the bus at 9:20, so that gave us 40 minutes to walk through one of the most beautiful national parks in the country.
There you go.
And visit the gift shop, and use the restroom, so you didn't have to use the one on the bus before we drove 2 more hours to get to the Silverado Winery. We had 40 minutes to accomplish those things. When they told us we had 40 minutes, I became very angry with people who were half hour late because it was not nearly enough time. And our guides had said, well, unless you stop and take pictures of literally every single tree, you're going to have plenty of time. No, we didn't. Mom and I were actually 7 minutes late getting back to the bus because we stopped in the gift shop and the line took forever. And then we obviously wanted to stop and use the restroom rather than use the one on the bus. So at any rate, these are some photos of Muir Woods. Large redwood trees, and it's the kind of place I have these photos, but that doesn't tell you anything. It's the kind of place you really need to see to appreciate, because this is probably the coolest thing that was there as far as a monument type of thing. So this tree was born in 909 AD, and they have rings highlighted of other events that happened in the tree's life. So they told us when the buildings of the cliff dwellings began in Mesa Verde. In 1325, the Aztecs began construction of
Tenochtitlan.
Thank you, Mexico. And this tree had already been alive for all of these years before all of those things happened. So the next one I think zooms out a little more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they tell us, where Columbus sailing to America. Look how long this tree had been alive before Columbus ever set sail. Jamestown, the Declaration of Independence. I mean, things that, American history is only in this much of the tree, and the tree's been alive since here. It's just unbelievable. So this tree actually fell in 1930, and they kept this cross-section to show the tree's life. And I thought that was I thought that was a very impactful thing.
Sorry, I can go back to the tree.
No, it's good. Go ahead. Moving forward. This place really reminded me of Bridge to Terabithia. Did you read that?
Nope.
When you were a kid? It's a story about 2 unlikely friends who find this. They're not really accepted by their peers at school, and they find this forest, and the way that they talk about the sunlight streaming in to the forest and laying on. There's pine needles, so not quite the same kind of trees, but it really reminded me of the imagery in that book. So it was just a really cool place to be, because that whole story just came flooding back as I was standing in the trees. There are lots of places where trees have fallen down, and they actually end up being nutrient sources for other trees that are growing. So they don't clear any trees out of the forest when they fall, unless they're unsafe or impeding the path, or if they're diseased in some way. But most of the trees that fall are left to just let other trees grow from them naturally, because this forest wasn't discovered until the early 1900s. So, the fact we've only known about this forest for 120 years, it's been doing just fine by itself since at least 909 AD. So there's really no need for us to help it to do what it does. So these are some of the bridges. There are 4 bridges that go across, and there's a set of stairs that goes up to a canopy trail. So there are lots of different options for viewing the trees. Now, when we were 7 minutes late getting back for the bus, there was another family, mother and her daughter, who didn't come back and didn't come back and didn't come back. It finally got to be 30 minutes after the meeting time, and the guides had gone out looking for them, couldn't find them anywhere, so they left word with the ranger station, and we all left and continued on. So this was the thing. It was a little dicey, honestly, because first of all, if the first people hadn't been 30 minutes late, this issue probably would not have cropped up, because the mom and daughter probably would have been close enough to being back that someone could have found them and they would have gotten back on the bus with us. So these people from the first thing in the morning, they really messed up the whole day. I mean, it really was a big deal.
It's just a reminder, when you're on an adventure by Disney, it's really important to be on time.
Yeah,
like,
and I say that as being late myself for this particular occurrence, but we wouldn't have been anywhere approaching late had the first people not been 30 minutes late getting us to our destination in the first place.
Yeah.
So it was a little...
The guides don't give you the
contentious.
times to be jerks. They
Right.
have a schedule set out.
Right. And there are certain experiences that won't wait for you.
Yeah.
So you really, you kind of have to be, if not on time, you got to be pretty close, because and we'll talk about that a little bit on the following day too. So anyway, Muir Woods National Park, whether you're on Adventures by Disney or not, if you are in the San Francisco area, go see it. It's really, really gorgeous. The road getting down to the park, one of the shots earlier was of some ginger candy. Our guides were really good about having this in full supply for us, because it's to combat motion sickness. I don't know if it actually worked or if I just didn't feel sick on the bus that day, because it was like smooth sailing. So I'm going to be stocking up on ginger candy, and it's going on our cruise with us.
Ginger's known to calm your stomach.
Okay. All right. Well, we're getting some of that candy, because it was tasty and it worked. Or at least the placebo effect was good enough. So, still more. This was... Go back to that one for just a second, please. This, the surface of this tree, the bark had worn away, and this was actually as smooth as if you had sanded down and made a table out of it. It was just, and it was really shiny, which I didn't really capture very well on the cell phone picture, but it was just really a beautiful piece of wood. I mean, if you could build something out of redwoods, it would look amazing. Obviously you can't do that because they're protected, but...
We apologize for the sign moving. It's the cat.
Oh, cat. Yeah. So, anyway, we did leave, and the mother and daughter were still out on the trail, and what had happened... was that they went up to... Yeah, that's driving. Okay. They had gone up the one staircase, and they thought that the trail looped around, and it doesn't. That staircase actually goes up into the canopy, and then you have to turn around and come back down. And by the time they realized that they weren't on a loop to come around, it was too late for them to walk back. So that's why the guides couldn't find them and couldn't see them coming anywhere, and couldn't find them in the gift shop or the bathrooms, because they were still up in the canopy. So... the mom was really good about it. She had said she had told her daughter, hey, when we get down there, the bus might not be there, because when she realized the problem, she's like, we're in so much trouble. She's like, we're never going to make it. So she had kind of prepped her for that, and of course, then when they got there and the bus wasn't there, I'm sure there were some anxious moments. However, the guides do, they do this tour all the time, so they know the rangers. They, told the rangers, hey, we have 2 more people that are somewhere in the trees, we don't know where they're at, but we need to move on because our next stop is waiting for us, and they are not friendly to us as far as giving us leeway if we're not on time. So we got out to where we had cell service again, because down in the trees there's not anything even resembling cell service. So the guides couldn't even try to communicate with the family, because there just wasn't an opportunity to do that. So we got back on the bus and went back up the scary, windy cliff road. It was about 20 minutes up the road, and then we drove until the park rangers were able to locate the family, and until the guides were able to get clearance from their supervisors to address the situation. So they addressed the situation by stopping at the next rental car location after we got, all of the permissions and everything, and picked up, Eleni got off the bus, picked up a rental car, and went back and got the family. Unfortunately, by this point, there really wasn't any opportunity for them to catch up to us, because they had to wait for her to backtrack, pick them up, if they'd have tried to come back out to Silverado, they'd have never made it while we were actually still there and doing it. I mean, they would have maybe made it to the Grape Stomp, and that's it. They would have missed the tour. They would have missed the lunch. It would have been a wasted day for them. So instead, she took them back into the city and did an alternate activity with just the family. So, hopefully that kind of made up for leaving them behind. So anyway, our next stop was Silverado Winery. And these are some random great pictures as we were driving, because there are tons of vineyards all over the place in Napa. And Napa and Sonoma Valleys are apparently right next to each other and separated by a mountain range. So we were on the Napa side. This is a trip, going out and looking at the grapes. They weren't harvesting the grapes yet, so we didn't really get to see anything in full production. This is the steps leading into the winery. What's the door? That was Rich. He was our guide through the winery. This Saturday Evening Post was a gift from Norman Rockwell to Walt Disney. So that hangs in the winery. And then the Remy picture was a gift from John Lasseter. So also hangs in the winery. And John Lasseter actually has his own winery. So there's a little bit of friendly competition between Lasseter's and the Silverado Vineyards. So this is the wine tasting terrace, and this is the vista looking out over to the mountains. And flowers. It's funny, in the go ahead, one more. That's the rosé. That was the first wine that we tried, and that was actually good. I don't like wine really, but that I actually drank the whole sample of that.
Hi, Ryan.
So but it's maybe one or two more pictures and then stop right there. Okay. So anyway, looking out over the mountains in California is a funny story. We were talking to people who were California natives, and they were telling us about how, they had taken a trip east and they thought everything was so lush and green and, not like their drab, boring California brown. And I was like, wow, because to us it's like the exact opposite. We go out and we see those California mountains, and yeah, they're brown in a lot of the pictures, but when the sun hits them just right, it looks like they're made of gold. And just Ben and I both have commented, not as much in San Francisco, but in Santa Barbara, the mountains are so beautiful. And it's just really funny to hear a native Californian being like, oh, I hate these brown mountains. I was like, no, they're gorgeous. What is wrong with you?
Yes, come to our swamp.
Yeah. So this house is actually where Lillian Disney, Walt Disney's wife, moved to after she left their house in Glendale, I think was the last place they lived together. So she actually moved out to this area and started acquiring land. And then Diane Disney Miller, her daughter, and Ron Miller, her husband, started buying land around Lillian's house. And that's what eventually became the Silverado Winery. So Diane Disney Miller passed away several years ago, but Ron is still living and still involved in the winery. And all of their children and their grandchildren work in different aspects at the winery. So it will continue to be family owned for the foreseeable future, because they have a pretty long, good and long family line. So as long as nobody gets into any kind of bickering and they have something good and tight and legal set up for how it's going to be handed down, it should stay in the family for a long time. So anyway, this was the Rosado that we had first. And then this is just going through the tour with Rich. So you can just kind of scroll through these. This was part of Ron and Diane Disney Miller's art collection. And apparently those stamps that are on the pictures from this art period, that's what actually makes the art valuable. So this is actually walking through the winery with the barrels, and we walked through where the refining machines are and the bottling plant.
Hi, Laura.
And just, one of the things I thought was really interesting, I've never toured a winery before at all, so I don't know how this compares to other places, other than I've been told that they're all pretty clean. Rich told us that basically the winery is cleaner than an operating room. Like, if you need surgery, you should ask them to do it at a winery, because everything has to be maintained. So this was our lunch, which we had in a room that was just off the tasting terrace, so of course the views there were really nice too. We had 3 different kinds of salad. There was a spinach, this was just a regular, iceberg. That wasn't really exciting. And then there was a quinoa and ancient green with vegetables salad. That was really awesome. And then we had some sandwiches. There was a ham, a chicken, and a vegetarian option. The vegetarian was actually an egg and cheese frittata, which was that was actually probably the best one. So, and unfortunately, the next activity that we did...
Back?
No.
Okay.
No, you can pause there for a minute. The next activity that we did was really awesome, and I have 0 pictures of it because we were participating in the activity, and it really, like, I put my camera away, so our guides have all of the pictures, which I haven't gotten back yet, and they have like 5 more business days until we might actually have them. So, unfortunately, we don't have those. But the activity that we did was a grape stomp, and of course, when I think grape stomp, I think Lucy and Ethel stomping grapes in Italy, which was actually the item on the itinerary that kind of caused Mom and I to book this trip, because we've been referred to on occasions as Lucy and Ethel. And actually, fun fact, today is Lucille Ball's 106th birthday. Good times. But anyway, so this grape stomp, I just kind of pictured they were going to have a big vat of grapes out there, and we were going to get to jump in and smash them all to pieces. Sounds fun, right? Well, no, it turns out that competitive grape stomping is a thing. I didn't know. No idea. So we got to do a competitive grape stomp, for which we split into teams and had to see who could create the most juice to fill a bottle. Let me tell you, I'm really glad that these grapes are now machined, and that people don't do this like for real to make wine, because it's just freaking nasty. Grape juice is apparently supposed to run clear. With having everybody's feet and the stems and everything in there, our juice was brown, so it would not make very attractive wine. And the process was just, I mean, you know how, like, if you accidentally smash a grape and you get some juice on your fingers? Okay, well, that juice was, like, on my hands, up my arms, all over my feet, all over my legs. It was in my hair. It was actually, like, really sticky and gross. But it was really fun. So that was probably the coolest individual thing that we've done on an adventure. Just because it's such a random, bizarre thing that you're never going to do anywhere in the world. So we really enjoyed it. We had a really good time doing it. We happened to be on the winning team. And those of you who are wine aficionados are going to kill me for this, but we actually won a bottle of wine each. And we actually, I traded it to somebody for a t-shirt.
You know, we could have gotten Alan's birthday present.
I know, but I really wanted a t-shirt.
I know, but...
And they didn't sell them. There was no, like, you couldn't buy a grape stomp t-shirt.
We could have pretended like we liked at Alan Liska. And,
well, okay, here's the thing, though. So we won the free bottle of wine, right? Except if we were going to ship our free bottle of wine home, it was going to cost us $51. So I just couldn't justify...
Yeah, we don't love them that much.
Yeah, I couldn't justify paying $51 to send home a thing that I won for free and was going to give away to somebody as a gift. Like, it was just like, that's just crazy. So I tried to trade it for a bottle of olive oil, because they also make olive oil at the winery. They wouldn't trade. Can you believe that? So I don't know what these people's economic thinking is, because clearly they've never taken a class, because I wanted to trade them a $60 bottle of wine for a $35 bottle of olive oil, and they didn't want to do it. I was like, you guys are weirdos, whatever. So we ended up keeping the wine, but then trading it to another participant for the t-shirt that they had won in the contest. So I have a purple grape stomp t-shirt, and I am very happy about it. So anyway, we finished up at the vineyard, took a couple more pictures, got back on the bus, and this was where the San Francisco, this is fun, work here, be happy. I love this billboard. This is where the San Francisco traffic really started to get to me personally. I mapped how long it was supposed to take from Silverado as we were leaving to get back to our hotel, because we were supposed to do a Facebook show that night. So I mapped it, and it said 45 minutes. It took us 2.5 hours. So I found that, I mean, yeah, it was frustrating when we were in Disneyland and we had to drive from Glendale to Anaheim, and it was about a 2.5 hour ride. But it was one time that we were on the bus that we were sitting in stop and go traffic for a long, long time. We were now on about our 3rd bus trip where we were sitting in stop and go traffic. I was really done with the bus concept by this point. So I don't think I would be a good person to do like a really long, like, bus tour. I'd be miserable the whole time. So we did eventually get back, and we had our evening on our own. So we did our Facebook show, and then we headed down to Fisherman's Wharf. And now this is where, if you're tuning in for the second time, thanks for bearing with us.
Oh my God, is that the part you already covered?
Yeah. So we walked down to Fisherman's Wharf for dinner, and we had dinner at a restaurant called Alioto's, which was established in, I think, 1925. So it's one of the first restaurants on the wharf, and it's supposed to be one of the best.
We did not eat it in an
We did not eat it in an Outburger. I just took a picture of the sign for Ben. Did I not take pictures of dinner?
I
might not have. Okay, hang on there for a minute, because that's my ice cream. So
I'm just clicking the button.
Okay, so we went to Alioto's, and it was really cool because we got to see the sunset over the bay while we were having dinner, which I really enjoyed. And we both had the same thing. We had a shrimp and scallops over pasta. We were trying really hard not to eat at an Italian restaurant because it's not my favorite. It's, we prefer seafood, steak. We're just not.
I love pasta.
Yeah. Mom and I just are not really huge Italian food fans. So, don't like really garlic that much. So we avoided the Stinking Rose, which is an all garlic restaurant. Like, to me, that sounded earlier. That sounded like the most horrid idea ever. So we didn't go there. But anyway, dinner was good. I wouldn't say that it was among the best seafood I've ever eaten, but it was very good. I enjoyed it very much, and the view was great. Company was great. And then afterwards, we were going to walk down to Pier 39, which is where most of the touristy activity happens at Fisherman's Wharf. But it was kind of late, and it was a Friday night. And we were kind of like, you know what? I bet that is like the mall of San Francisco. Like, there's probably a lot of nefarious activity going on down there, and a lot of teenagers hanging out and things like that. So I was like, well, you know what? Let's maybe just walk on these couple blocks and and then grab an Uber back. So one of the places that we walked to was this cute little ice cream shop. I don't actually know what it was called because there was a sign inside that had a different name than the sign outside. It's a little ice cream shop in between two large sets of brick buildings near the wharf. But they had ubi ice cream, which was a sweet potato ice cream. It was good, but not my favorite flavor ever. But it was fun to try, and I mean, it was purple, so you can't go wrong with purple ice cream. Oh, we're good. That's the next day. That was pretty much the last thing we did was get. Yeah. Okay, so after our ice cream, we walked back down to a place where we felt safe standing for a while we waited for Uber. Called our Uber, and we actually did a shared ride. It was the first time I'd done a shared ride with anybody, and that worked out really nice because we got to meet some new people. That was Mom's first Uber ever, so that was a lot of fun. I think she was a little nervous, but I think she's a believer after one ride. So safely back to our hotel, and wake-up call on day 3 was 8 o'clock. So got a little bit more time. Was that your actual wake-up call, or is that when you were supposed to meet? That was when we were supposed to meet. That was our meet time. Yeah, I got up at, 5 o'clock or something. I ran down to Starbucks and got food. And so anyway, we met up at 8 o'clock. Everybody was on time the second day. And our first stop was to the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, on the way to the Golden Gate Bridge, we learned that it was actually the 50th anniversary of Summer of Love. So our guides helped us out with these dandy little flower arrangements here. And there were some nice flowers at the bridge. It's actually the 80th anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge construction. So that's where Ben's hat is from the 80th. And these are some pictures of us on the bridge. And it was actually kind of cool because the first day we got the unobstructed views of the bridge with no Carl the Fog. And the second day we got to experience a little bit of Carl with our bridge pictures. So I think it was kind of cool to have a set of each. And our one guide, Anne, her husband, was going to start, he was swimming under the bridge that day. And now bear in mind, did you see my coat? It's like 40 degrees on the bridge. Okay, he was supposed to leave this beach and swim underneath the bridge. I took this picture standing on the bridge. I was like, dude, it's cold. What are you thinking? Why would you do that? So, backtracking to the first day, the temperature in Muir Woods in the morning was about 40 degrees, and the temperature at Silverado Winery was about 90. So this is just part of like normal San Francisco weather. This wasn't a strange pattern or anything. And it's relevant because this morning we're still in coats. It's about 40 degrees again in the morning. This was a set of steps up to the Golden Gate Bridge, and this is welcome written in many, many different languages. It's almost like it's a small world. So the flower tributes here to the 80th anniversary. Some information about the construction and the traffic patterns. How collecting tolls was like the worst job ever.
So cold.
And this is driving past Sausalito. Does it look cold? It was. It was very cold. Here we're finished with our bridge excursion, and we're now on our way to Angel Island. This will take a while. The way that we got to Angel Island was via the Tiburon to Angel Island ferry, which was actually kind of a cool story. This is Tiburon, where we picked up the ferry. And go ahead, you can keep one. We met the Maggie, who owns the Angel Island to Tiburon ferry, and her family has been operating this ferry for 5 generations. So that's not a roll of toilet paper in her hand; those are stickers. But she told us a little bit about the history of the ferry and an amusing story about Al Capone and how he was run out of part of San Francisco by a law officer who approached him and said, "We don't appreciate your business in our part of town, but over there they don't care," and they sent him over to Tiburon. So apparently he spent some time in Tiburon running illegal booze. pretty amusing. So we got on the ferry, and I was really hoping to go up top because apparently there are a lot of different types of wildlife, including whales in the bay in this area. But honestly, we got on the ferry and it was so cold, even downstairs. I was like, "There's no way I'm going up there." This is the tram guy.
Oh.
At Angel Island. I forget his name. But anyway, he drove the tram. Once we got to Angel Island, this is the little beach area where you can, sail your boat up and dock there. Once we got to Angel Island, we boarded a tram, and those are not redwoods. They're just there. And we drove up to a point on the island where the, what's it called when people move to a new country? Immigration station was at. It was actually kind of a sad place because it was considered the Ellis Island of the West. But I mean, if you look at it, it's like there's nothing impressive or exciting about these buildings. Some of them have burned down. It's really kind of a testament to how poorly people were treated when they were trying to immigrate, especially from China. There was a restriction on Asian immigration for a while, so a lot of people were actually detained on Angel Island and housed in not so great conditions, and they were really pretty upset about it. There were a lot of writings, a lot of poems about the conditions on Angel Island and how tough those immigrants had it. So it was an interesting place to see. Unfortunately, the audio on the tram was really terrible, and it was really cold. So we're all just kind of like freezing to death, not able to hear the audio. I actually had to look up some information about Angel Island when we got home because I saw enough that I was intrigued and wanted to know more about it, but nothing on the tour, unfortunately, really gave us a good history. The monuments that they had at Angel Island, go ahead and keep scrolling. The monuments that they had there, they had this bell, and then there was a wall that looked kind of like almost like a very small section of the Vietnam Memorial. This is from the wall. There's this section, and then there's another section over to the side. So it looks like a very small, like scaled down version of something that would be similar to the Vietnam Memorial. The house up on the hill doesn't have anything in it currently. They're renovating it and supposed to be putting in some more information dedicated to what went on here. But right now it's nothing. So this was it. We took a ferry over to this island, took a tram up to the top of this pile of rocks to see this desolate place. So not my favorite thing on the itinerary. I don't think anybody's favorite thing on the itinerary. But that's part of traveling, is seeing things that, I would have never of my own volition gone to Angel Island because I wouldn't have found it to be something that really grabbed my attention. But I'm glad I've seen it. Even though there's not much there, I know that there's not much there, and I know a little bit more about the story. So anyway, we took the very next ferry back to Tiburon, had lunch in Tiburon. Oh, go back to 2 photos. This was the most interesting thing on Angel Island. The Skywalker Ranch is over there, across the street from the island. Okay, boats in the harbor. I was taking pictures here because I was bored waiting for the ferry, so I took some pictures. And this is back in Tiburon. This is a little Mexican restaurant at Tiburon. I can't remember what it's called, but it was very good food. I had chicken flautas, and Mom got a chicken Caesar salad. Both were excellent. Everything that everybody had at the table looked great. We had a lot of people that got nachos. And these are airdropped photos. So that's the chicken Caesar salad. It's basically like 3/4 of an avocado cut up in there, and very nice, huge. We could have shared just that. Go ahead. Those are the flautas.
How were they?
They were awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
More airdrop.
More airdrop. This is the candy store on Main Street in Tiburon, and they had a really neat display in here. I think I have a couple pictures of it if you can see them. With it looks like a little carnival and like its own little Main Street. So that was a neat thing. They sell high chew candy at the candy store, so I got some of that. and this is just walking through. It's a very small area. Like Tiburon's not the little village of Tiburon isn't a very big place. Like there's housing around, but not that you would want to walk around. I mean, it's people's private residences. So after Tiburon, we started a journey towards the Walt Disney Family Museum. Our journey took many unexpected stops, or unexpected by us. First of which was Sausalito. Mom was really excited to see Sausalito, and I think she expected there to be more than what there is, but it's basically a houseboat community.
Is it the source of the cookie of the same name? Isn't there a Sausalito cookie?
Oh, there is a Sausalito cookie. Like, you know what? I'm not sure.
Were there cookies?
There was an ice cream sandwich.
Oh.
Ooh.
Let's get to that. Hold on.
hang on. So these are the houseboats. These were really interesting. Anne, our one guide, actually lives in a houseboat. So she was able to tell us a lot about the structure of them, etc. And when the tide goes out, they actually end up sitting on the silt. So there are times of day when the entire house is exposed, and then there are times of day when it rises up and actually floats a little bit. And the houseboats have basements, which I thought was hysterical because, like, in Florida, the water table is so high that the houses can't have a basement. These houses live on the water, and they can have a basement. So I just thought that was really bizarre. But she said the first time that her parents ever stayed with them, they were sleeping in the basement. And they were really confused because they saw the water coming up to the windows, and they're like, "Should we leave? Are we going to be flooded?" And she's like, "No, it's normal. It's okay." And so that was pretty cool.
I mean, come on, who doesn't live on a houseboat and tell guests that when they're sleeping there? Look, you're going to see water. It's okay.
Yeah. No, I'd be like, just let them find out on their own. It'll be funny.
It's because you're a monster.
So anyway, we did get off the boat and we got off the bus and took a couple of photos.
You also got off the boat. I mean,
we got off the boat too. Yeah.
Yeah, MacGyver lived
we
on
didn't
a
get to
houseboat.
go into Anne's houseboat, which was kind of a bummer. I was kind of hoping we get to see the inside of one. But on the way out, she stopped and grabbed us ice cream sandwiches, which is apparently the real San Francisco treat. By the way, rice-a-roni, nothing to do with San Francisco.
Nice.
I know. I was
Childhood
devastated.
ruined.
But is the real San Francisco treat. So it's a vanilla ice cream, and actually it comes in different flavors, but the traditional is vanilla ice cream topped with 2 oatmeal cookies and dipped in chocolate. Yeah. It was pretty phenomenal. Yeah. I tried to order a case when I got home. Case of 24 ice cream sandwiches is like $22. I'm like, all right, no problem. I add them to my cart, check shipping, $65 to ship them. That's not total price. That's $65 shipping in addition to the $22.
Yeah,
so guess what?
It still comes out to $2.50 an ice cream sandwich, right?
It does. Yeah, it's only $2.50 because it's a case of 24.
Wait, no, that can't be right.
Well, no, I think I was looking at. There's another vendor that sells a case of 48 for $129, including shipping.
Oh, that's okay. There we go.
So there's a way to get them for like $2.50 a piece. So if I can find 46 other people, because I assume Ben wants one, who want an It's It ice cream sandwich on the East Coast, and you're willing to pay me $2.50, give me a call, message us here on the page, and we'll order a case and split them with you.
Okay, we need a garage freezer if we're going to order that many ice cream sandwiches.
Well, we'll have a pickup day. I can tell you when they're coming, because they tell you
if we don't have to share them, it's fine. We can take care of them.
I don't want to get freezer burned.
I don't want to.
For $2.50 a sandwich.
It's not going to last long enough to get freezer burned.
That's true. So,
Dinah, get off the table.
Here we are at the Lucasfilm campus. This was our next... Dinah, you're in front of the camera. What is wrong with you, silly bear? So, we're here at the Lucasfilm campus. I think that's the Yoda statue, but the pictures are really blurry to us.
And slightly tilted.
That's a really nice sidewalk. They did a good job with the concrete. I wanted to point that out. This nice gentleman up here is holding our Adventures by Disney sign so that Eleni can keep her hands free and talk with them. These were fun. I like that one. She's like, I'm going to jump. Eleni actually lives in the Presidio area, which is where both Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Family Museum and the Palace of Fine Arts from the first day are all located. So this is the statue of Yoda. Usually, if you're just a regular guest wandering around the Presidio, this is all the farther you can get. We actually have pictures of all of us in San Francisco.
I thought you could go into the lobby.
I thought I read that you could, then I read that you couldn't, then I read that you could, then I saw people that couldn't. I'm not sure what the real story is. if you go, try to go into the lobby. If they say no, then you're no worse off than you were before. So anyway, we did get to go into the lobby, which is a pretty exclusive thing because they do keep it pretty well guarded. They have a lot of secret stuff going on in there. And even though it's just on computer, there are people that know how to steal that information, and that would be tragic. So they have some cool stuff.
Kimmy.
Like it's a R2-D2 statue.
More R2-D2
More
statues.
R2-D2. King Kong model.
That's a cool
I'm sure there was a purpose for that picture. Bookshelves with various Star Wars characters. I did take a lot of pictures in here because I wanted to send them all to Ben, so there are tons of pictures of Lucasfilm. Oops. What's that thing that happened? There's Chewbacca.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett was in a separate room. He was a secret surprise.
More Chewbacca.
There was also a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle in that room that I didn't take a picture of because it was one of the new style ones, and I was like, no.
The Bay Turtles.
Yeah, no. Not
Darth
allowed.
Maul.
That's like the
Shadow
new style My
Trooper.
Little Ponies, and they're just, nope.
Space Jesus, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Space Jesus. Emmy Awards from
Whiny
George Lucas
McSandface.
Hey.
Anakin Skywalker.
Aw.
I know, right? The best scene.
Force choke!
It's not force choke. That's just Darth Vader choking someone because he's awesome.
Sorry. Okay, that's choking.
Yeah.
Never mind. Are you going to jump up here again?
A bunch of Star Wars expanded universe novels that I've probably read.
Those look like our bookshelf at home. That's why I took a picture of that shelf.
The lounge, I guess.
This is just the atrium area. This is all the farther that we got. I mean, we didn't get to go see anything that was amazing.
Yep, she's gonna jump up again.
There are some. Hi, kitty. There are some models that you can see from outside. They have them up in the windows of one of the catwalks, but we couldn't go up that far. And honestly, that was probably because they are working on, Star Wars 8 and 9 and the Han Solo movie, and they don't, want people up there. So the backside of Yoda!
By the way, you are looking at the backside of the Magic Shores film studios right now.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So this is the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Okay, you're not allowed to take as long talking about this as you would going through it.
I could spend all day here. This
Yes.
is my place. This nice gentleman here runs a podcast called Connecting with Walt, and he does an amazing job. When he was a kid, he was a Mouseketeer, so he's been steeped in Walt Disney history forever, and does an amazing show. And I saw him do a post on Facebook that he was going to be at the museum today, and I actually
that day, not today.
That day, yeah. So I actually got a chance to meet up with him, which was kind of the highlight of my day, honestly. So chance meeting with Michael Bowling. So this is the original furniture from Walt Disney's apartment on Main Street. So now we've seen the apartment and we've seen the furniture. They're not in the same place, but that's okay. The lobby pics are going to be mostly.
If you've seen The Happiest Millionaire,
we think these chairs are in it somewhere. I have to watch it again and double check.
hold on. Will you bat the cat on the butt, please? Stop chewing on that, please.
Don't do that.
This is why we normally have the door closed. I'm just saying.
This is a picture of Elias and Flora Disney, and a picture actually in the apartment. So you can actually see the furniture that's up there now, which is kind of interesting. This was our guide, Chris. He was an excellent and knowledgeable guide, but he was too daggone fast. So I was running to keep up with him. I'm like, Chris, stop! I have to look at all the things. I have to photograph them. I can't keep up with you. These are all awards, key to the city, and so you can kind of skip through a lot of that stuff. There is one that's shaped like a turkey, which is kind of funny. That's when Walt Disney, the presenter of this award, asked Walt Disney what he thought it was. He told him he thought it was a burnt turkey. Can you get down? Thank you. Okay.
Some of Walt's awards.
Yep. Oscars and whatnot. These are some of his original sketches. This was, I'm not sure that was his ambulance, but it is a World War I ambulance. I don't know if they were able to go back and find his exact one. So we're going to flip through some museum photos here. The birth of Mickey Mouse is pretty cool. Another airdrop photo in the middle. A lot of these, in this museum, because people tend to want to run through it, and that I'm with, I take pictures of the... Yeah. I take pictures of a lot of the placards so I can go back and read them thoroughly later. So anyway, this was actually Plain Crazy. This is the entire short. They have the whole thing on the wall, which I think is the coolest thing.
Excuse me. Laura's saying that she didn't realize that the furniture was in the lobby of the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Yeah.
She's going to check it out next time she goes.
Yeah, it's awesome. Let's see here.
Is it one of the ones I skipped?
This was no. This was one of the story meetings. I forget which movie. There's probably a plaque in here on one of the next couple pictures. That was the story meeting at Hyperion. Yeah, I love that in the Family Museum they do these family stories that are things that, I mean, if you're reading a company biography about Walt Disney, you're never going to hear these stories, but they were ones that Diane Disney Miller and her sister Sharon remembered from childhood, or, you know, maybe things that Lillian contributed before she passed away. And they're real gems. The couple pictures back there, you don't have to go back, but where there were two photos stacked on top of each other, that was The Ugly Duckling, which was the only short film to ever be remade by the Disney studio. So it was really cool. In the museum, they have the old and the new running simultaneously, so you can see all the differences. It's pretty neat. Some of the original cells that were saved and were not slid on in the ink and paint morgue down at the studio. You have to go back and just pause for a second. On the menu at the Walt Disney Studios, I stared at this menu for like 10 minutes because I was looking for Walt's chili, which they now serve at the commissary at the Walt Disney Studios, and we had for lunch when we were there on the Backstage Magic Tour. And couldn't you believe that on the Walt Disney Studios commissary menu, there's no Walt's chili?
I'm sorry, am I supposed to be shocked?
I was shocked. Ben can believe it. I can't. This is one of the 3 actual multiplane cameras. The other ones we saw at the Walt Disney Studios in the lobby outside the archives, and then we're going to actually get to see the 3rd one at Disneyland Paris in May. So we're taking the tour of the multiplane camera this year. These were the ink and paint instructions. Some of the World War II posters. A lot of Disney films in the 40s had Spanish influence. Saludos Amigos, Three Caballeros. A lot of things were translated into Spanish because Walt Disney had made a trip to South America and had actually met Salvador Dali and was very influenced by him. So you see a lot of that Spanish influence coming into the Disney company in the 40s.
There's chili.
Yeah, but that was just a regular canned chili. These were just like things that Walt Disney liked to eat. They have a lot of random stuff in this museum. It's really cool.
Ooh, knives.
Yeah, these were collections of miniatures, miniature knives, miniature dishware. Walt Disney was really into miniatures, thus Storybook Land in Disneyland. One of the park benches from Griffith Park, which they still have some benches at Griffith Park, and they also have those benches at Disneyland in the Disney Gallery. And you can go ahead and scroll through these pretty quick because I took a lot of them. There were models of the Carolwood Pacific, which is located at Walt's Barn in LA. And then this is a model of Disneyland. Now, when we say this is a model of Disneyland, it's a Disneyland that always was and never will be. It's various iconic attractions that might have been there at certain stages. There are even a couple of attractions, I think, on here that never actually existed at Disneyland, but made it all the way through the design phase before they...
Oh, Laura's just saying how her favorite thing was seeing the notes Walt wrote to his housekeeper telling her what food he wanted for dinner.
Yes. This is the Olympic torch from the Squaw Valley Olympics, where it was the 1960 Winter Olympics, and Walt Disney actually was the master of pageantry for those games, which I think is really cool because I think the Olympics are amazing, and it's an amazing movement, and to have like Walt Disney, who's one of the most iconic people, be the person who brings the first pageantry to the games and actually kind of sets the trend for what we have today as the opening ceremonies is pretty cool. Those games were actually really struggling, and that's why Walt Disney was brought in, because they were afraid that without some sort of ploy, no one would come see them and the Winter Olympics would fail. So this is towards the end of the museum because, as we know, Mary Poppins was very close to Walt Disney's passing. These are some items from the World's Fair. That's the structure for President Lincoln. One of the tiki birds. Sketches for It's a Small World.
Carousel of Progress?
Yep, Ford Pavilion.
Yeah.
Which is actually the only pavilion that's not still really alive and well. It's the only one that really wasn't preserved. And then this is an entire room of artwork from around the world of people acknowledging the passing of Walt Disney. So it's a very powerful room, and it was one of the places that it was extremely rushed. But fortunately, I've been to the museum before, so I had some time to take that all in the first time. So this is out in the lobby during the gift shop time. And it was I was so torn because I would go back through the museum. We had about 45 minutes at the end of the tour. And it was like, do I go back through the museum? But I can't see the whole thing again in 45 minutes. And I couldn't really decide on what to focus in on looking at. Or I could actually spend time in the gift shop because it was the only gift shop that we weren't completely rushed in. So
Multiplane Holly?
Yeah. So I opted for the gift shop. And I found some really cool stuff. Actually, I found a magazine called E-Ticket that I had never heard of before. It's out of print now. But it goes through and talks about attractions, like from their beginning stages to their end stages, and talks about the contributions of everybody involved and where the pieces of the attraction came from. So I picked up 2 issues of that. Currently working through the first one on the King Arthur Carousel. And what else did I get there? I got a couple of pins. They do have pins that are exclusive to the Walt Disney Family Museum, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, and I got a T-shirt. You can paint shirt. So. That was very, very close parking. This is our departure information. So one of the things Adventures by Disney does is to make sure that your departure information is correctly coordinated. So you don't have to worry about the car picking you up at the right time and getting you to the right airport and everything. They give you a verification slip that they've already set it up for you. So just one more thing you don't have to do on your own. This was our farewell dinner at One Market. I have to say, I found this dinner to be largely disappointing. It looked like it was going to be really great. They've got the chef's table concept all set up there like they do at Navarro's. I was like, this is going to be phenomenal. Our first course was a farmer's market salad. That was actually pretty good. That was, a lot of fresh produce, and it had a different flavor than if you would just eat like a regular chef salad here. We had a choice between steak, salmon, and a vegetarian option. And they're telling us, they're like, pick the steak, because the steak is like a $43 steak versus the $28 salmon. Like, if you're about value for your trip, the steak was your better option here. And I mean, I was like, yeah, well, Ben always orders beef when we go out, and usually he has really good luck with it. So I was like, I'm going to go with the beef option.
Well, I would have gone with the beef option no matter what. So
yeah. So anyway, the steak. First of all, the server didn't distribute the steaks correctly. There were several people at our table that ordered rare, several that ordered medium rare, and we had like one person order medium. I ordered my steak rare. I got a medium steak. Somebody else got my rare steak. So we just traded plates, but everybody had kind of taken a bite at that point, kind of resigning themselves to, well, my steak isn't right, So we traded off steaks, but they were really kind of flavorless. They were a little tough. Our table was not impressed with our steaks at all. The table next to us thought they were great, and there were actually people at that table from Texas, where I kind of feel like they probably have pretty good beef, and they thought the steaks were fantastic. So I don't know if we just didn't luck out at all on by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we got the wrong steaks; they weren't great steaks. The potatoes to me tasted like they were instant. The spinach was good, but it was just plain old regular boiled spinach. There wasn't anything special about it. So yeah, it was kind of a disappointing meal, honestly. The cheesecake at the end, the cheesecake itself was great. What's not great about it is that's not chocolate sauce, that's blueberries. And blueberries are the most vile food on the planet.
If you've been following the Holly Hates This Food podcast, then you'll know that blueberry is at the top of the offenders list.
Blueberries and pineapples, not my favorites. So then this was, we were driving through the city after One Market, and this was actually one of the only surprise elements on our itinerary. You can go ahead and scroll through because a lot of these are taken out the bus window. We got to go over to the Oakland Bay Bridge and take some photos at the bridge. Oh, okay, so apparently I deleted the crappy ones. So that was actually the end of our adventure as far as time spent with our group. We did meet our guides again the next morning, and each day of the adventure, you receive a pin. So we were receiving our pins throughout, and then the last day, even though we didn't have a group activity scheduled, we still met with our guides to say goodbye, and of course we gave them their gratuities, which they were excited about, and they gave us our last pin. So even though we didn't have a group activity, we still did get a pin for day 4.
You didn't bring your lanyard down.
I didn't. The first day was called Golden Gate Galore. The second was Vineyard Grapes and Forestscapes. It has a picture of Goofy at a vineyard. The first one's Mickey at the Golden Gate Bridge. The third day is Family Heritage, and it's a picture of the museum.
Mhm.
And then the fourth day is Bye Bye Bay, and it's a picture of Donald on a trolley car. Or not a trolley car, a cable car. Interesting thing about the cable cars. We had this discussion with my dad the last time we were all in San Francisco about the street cars. He was saying that they're not cable cars, they're trolleys. There's no cable connected to them. Well, the cable is actually under the street, and the cable moves at a constant 9 miles an hour. So the cable's basically an omni-mover. And the cable car has grippies underneath of the car, and it just holds onto the cable or lets go of the cable if it wants to go or stop. So I thought that was really cool. Like, I didn't really never considered how they move, and like especially with the big hills and everything, like how that works. But it's just it's like a ski lift for a car. Yeah. So Mom and I did ride a cable car. In fact, we rode 2 different cable cars. We are now 3 for 3 for not paying for cable car rides. So the first time we were in San Francisco all together, the 4 of us, we rode a cable car, but where we got on it, there was only 1 stop to go. So we got to the end, and the guy's like, and we're like, oh, do we have to pay for 1 stop? Can we go the other way or something? And he's like, nah. He's like, just don't tell anybody you were here. And we're like, all right, cool. Well, we just told you. Sorry. So the next time we got on, our guides told us to get to the cable car, we were supposed to walk up California Street. And when I say up California Street, I mean walk up California Street to get to the Pal Mason line.
Laura wants to know which ABD you preferred.
We'll get to it. Yeah, in a minute. Do you have time to hang on with us for a minute? I'm almost done.
Keep talking,
okay.
And I'll let you know if she says
anything. Okay. So we got on the cable car like partway up California Street because Mom was like, "How far do we have to go?" And I was like 2 more blocks, and she's like, She's like, I quit. So
this is why my mother-in-law is the best.
Yeah. So there happens to be a cable car line on California Street, or California Avenue. California something.
Laura's good.
Okay, cool, thanks. So we hopped on the cable car at California, and we were like, so what do we have to, like, do we pay, can we pay you? We just want to go, 2 stops to get the other cable car, because we're tired of walking up the hill. And the guy's like, I didn't see you. We're like, yes, score, free cable car ride. Because it's $7 each way. It doesn't matter how many stops you go. So we hopped off the cable car, got on the Pal and Mason car, and this time, the one from California, there was 3 people on it when we got on, so we're thinking, oh, it's Sunday morning, nobody's on the cable cars yet. Yeah, they are. They're all riding the other lines to get down to Fisherman's Wharf, which is what we were doing. So, this is going to be a disaster. No. Kitty, no. Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
So she's really bad. She's so misbehaved.
It's because we never discipline her.
Yeah, but it's because she's so sweet. You can't be mean to her. Anyway, so we got on the next cable car, and it was packed. There were these 2 people that came up after us that were going to try to get on the car, and I was having none of it. I'm like, no, we've been standing here for 10 minutes. We are getting on this car, and you're not. They're only taking 2 people, and it's going to be us. So we got on the cable car, and the guy's talking about, you got to pay, and we're like, okay, so we're trying to get money out to give to him, and he walks away and gets on the back and says, get on the car. I would pay inside. Well, we couldn't get to him inside because there were tons and tons of people in the car. So I was like, well, we'll just pay when we get off, I guess. Well, so we get off the cable car, and Mom starts walking away. I'm like, we didn't pay the guy. And she's like, just come on, let's go. So
Mother's bad.
I know, my mom stealing cable car rides in San Francisco. It was funny. So anyway, we found this great little place for crepes, right around the same street. I don't know what any of the streets are called. Bay Street, maybe. We got these awesome crepe cafe. Fantastic strawberry banana Nutella crepes. Go ahead, honey. This was the guy making them in the window. That sign said Nutella, the only reason you buy bread. I agree. So anyway, those were the crepes. Then we walked past Joe's Crab Shack, and I think this is something everybody should aspire to, is to eat crab. So I like the sign, so I took a picture.
That sign has to get vandalized often.
Yeah, probably.
A little bit of white out, and you're in business.
So anyway, we walked down to Pier 39 to where the sea lions are, and that was actually the Fisherman's Wharf area. That was the biggest Applebee's I've ever seen in my life.
So much bad food.
The Boudin Bakery, where we had really awesome bread at the fake Boudin Bakery at California Adventure at Disneyland, and really terrible bread at the actual Boudin Bakery in San Francisco. I don't know why. Because that sourdough should be amazing, but whatever. So anyway, Pier 39, they got kite stores, and where's another anniversary? Pier 39 is turning 39 years old this year, so it was it was really cool to have like all of these neat anniversaries happening right around our time that we were there. This is a little farmer's market that was set up on the pier.
Laura loves you, Dinah.
This is the Alcatraz gift shop, not on Alcatraz, which I just think is hysterical. Striped clothing for everyone. Stripes as far as the eye can see. This is a double-decker carousel on the pier. And these are the sea lions who have made themselves at home on the pier. Apparently the fishermen, to try to get rid of the sea lions, they used to play Metallica to try to scare them away. But
apparently, did they develop a taste for it?
Turns out sea lions like Metallica. Who knew?
Who doesn't like Metallica?
There are probably like 40 bajillion pictures of sea lions because I love them. They're so adorable. They smell terrible, but they're so cute. You can't help it. You gotta love them. Donald Trump socks with the hair. They're hysterical.
Did you get that only good suit is a wetsuit sign for Christine?
That was for Christine, yeah.
Yeah.
So we ate at, I think Nick's Lighthouse was where we actually ended up eating lunch. It was just a walk-up stand at Fisherman's Wharf. I got a lobster roll, which was, the lobster on top was delicious. The lobster and mayonnaise concoction underneath was awful. Moral of the story, don't get a lobster roll outside of New England. Just, no, it's not worth it. Mom had soup in a bread bowl, which she thought was okay, but bisque in San Francisco is a thin soup, and, bisque here is not. This is Mom feeding the wildlife, which, of course, you're not supposed to do ever anywhere, but, she was having fun. So, she had leftover oyster crackers. This was, how did we get back? Oh, yeah, we walked back through Chinatown, which was actually the only time we spent any time in Chinatown. Even my China, the way that we entered it, I don't think we were technically in Chinatown when we walked in. This is gelato. I stopped at every Italian place that had a sign out for gelato, thinking it should be good, right? Well, I'd look in the case, and every one of them had, water laying in the gelato, and I was like, oh, no, absolutely not. So I had to go to Chinatown to get good gelato. It was just bizarre.
I'm really glad I wasn't along on that trip. I would have been rolling my eyes so hard at your quest for gelato that it would have been unbearable.
I like the sign. I want to get one for my office. No smoking within 10 miles of the office.
Cars. More Chinatown.
Yeah. Yeah, these were cool. They had these Chinese lanterns stretched out across the streets. It was a really neat thing. So we're reaching the end here. That was a store that we went in. This was the church where we cut the trolley car the first time, or the cable car. Somehow those pictures are out of order. I don't know. Okay, and we're back at the hotel. So from there, we waited for our car, collected our luggage, changed, because I wore jeans that morning because all the other mornings it was cold. Oh, yeah, this is the Stagecoach at Wells Fargo Museum, which was closed on Sunday, which I didn't even think about, because it's not banking hours, they wouldn't be open. Because I wanted to walk over there and check out the museum quick, but unfortunately, we didn't get the museum, but we could take a picture of the Stagecoach through the window. So, sort of happened. And then these are actually photos flying home. So then we had our transportation back to the airport, which was excellent. Of course, the driver, dropped us off right at our terminal. Thank you, terminal. Our experience inside the airport was a cataclysmic disaster. We had done the mobile boarding passes, which is the first time Mom's used mobile boarding pass, so I was all excited for her to master a new technology. We get up to the TSA checkpoint, they go to scan it, and they're like, oh, you're Spirit. And we're like, yes, we're Spirit. And they're like, their mobile boarding passes aren't working today. Okay. Today. So they sent us back to the Spirit terminal. Normally I don't care. Normally I've got a suitcase with wheels on it. Today I had crammed all of my worldly belongings in a duffel bag that was heavy. So making me walk around the airport, not improving my mood. So we walked back down to Spirit, got our paper boarding passes, got back up to the TSA checkpoint. We have pre-check. We don't have to take anything out of our bags. We're supposed to be able to just put it through the scanner. What happens? They decide they have to check both of our bags because they can see that there are liquids in them. So I try to explain to the guy, I'm like, yeah, because we had pre-check, so we don't have to take the liquids out. He's like, well, you still have to abide by the law. I'm like, I did. The liquids are just in the bag. So he had to take my bag apart, which I was angry about because I mean, it was like a show of physics to get this bag closed. And he proposed to open it back up, and then I was going to have to close it again. I was not a happy camper. So, anyway, he looked in the bag, and of course we had complied with the TSA safety regulations because we're not stupid. And we went on our way. We got over to our terminal for where our Spirit flight was going to be at, and it was, hotter than the surface of the sun in the Spirit section of the airport. I don't know why.
Apparently
it was like
you
the
need
air
to pay
conditioning was
extra
broken.
for air conditioning.
I guess. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this flight is terrible already, and we're not even on the plane yet. Well, it turned out it was a fine flight home. We had upgraded our seats, and so we had, pretty nice, like, they were thin, cushiony seats, but they were wider, cushiony seats, and it was a late flight. We left at 4:42 San Francisco time, which meant we landed at 1 a.m. Baltimore time. So it was nice to be able to kind of kick back and relax on the flight and not be crammed in like sardines. We got home pretty quickly. No issues at all on the flight. We had a little bit of turbulence. We drove through a cloud, which was kind of cool because we were in the daylight on one side of the cloud, and by the time we got out on the other side of the cloud, it was nighttime. So that was kind of other than there was turbulence in there, and of course I was like, oh my god, it's Spirit, and they actually try to fly by flapping the wings up and down. We're definitely gonna crash and die. Other than that, it was a cool experience. So anyway, good trip. Definitely had some criticisms as far as the traffic, as far as the value. So I'm going to do a quick rundown of the value, and then we'll compare trip to trip. The transportation to and from the airport, I estimated about $120 in value. The room at the Omni, about $1,200. The dinner at My China, about $140. Dinner at One Market, about $200, which honestly, for the food there, that was a ripoff, but that's what it would cost. Lunch at Silverado, around $100, including the wine. Bike tour for 2 people was about $100, which I thought was like extraordinarily overpriced as a thing, honestly. Muir Woods, one of the least expensive things on the trip and one of the best things that we did was $20. Silverado, the tour and the Grape Stomp was a hard thing to price out. I would estimate that was probably about $100 a person for the total experience. So $200 there. Tiburon and Angel Island was just the ferry and the tram tour. That was about $70. The fact that Muir Woods was $20 and Angel Island, the ferry, and the tram tour was $70 is like one of the greatest injustices of our time. That should be absolutely reversed. Walt Disney Family Museum with the guided tour is about $80. I'm sure the guides paid some gratuity to the folks that let us into Lucasfilm, so I estimated that at about $20. The freebies and snacks that we got along the way, which included, of course, our Flower Power headbands, our duffel bag. Each adventure family gets a duffel bag. We did not get 2 duffel bags, being 2 families traveling on this trip, so there is just one. We also got a hat from Lucasfilm. We each got one, so that was a nice freebie. There's a snack basket on the bus that gets passed back and forth, so we had unlimited access to snacks, and it was things like, there was anything from chips to cookies to apples and bananas and oranges and unlimited bottled water. Pretty much anything you could want from a snack box, they had available to us basically at all times. We also get each trip you get a drawstring bag, and you get a small like cosmetics bag. You could almost use it as a bank bag. I'm just trying to think if I'm missing anything. Oh, the ice cream sandwich was a freebie. I think there was one other thing that's slipping my mind right now. But anyway, altogether, I valued all of those things at about $200. Bus transportation, about $100 a person, so $200. And our guides, assuming a guide would cost Adventures by Disney about $100 an hour.